Keeping off the leeches of fame. This is how we roll, man.
To escape. It will change your mood. When you're walking on the moon. Walking on the moon. Chase your happy place. It will change your groove. When you're dancing on the moon, dancing on the moon. When we dance again, all our troubles seems to fade away. This is how I feel when you take me to some levels that I've never been. When we dance again, all our troubles seems to fade away. This is how I feel when you take me to some places that I've never been. When we dance again, that I've never been. That I've never been. That I've never, ever, never, ever, never been. Walking on the moon. One moment to escape. It will change your mood. When you're walking on the moon. Walking on the moon. Chase your happy place. It will change your groove. When you're dancing on the moon, dancing on the moon. When we dance again, all our troubles seems to fade away. This is how I feel when you take me to some levels that I've never been. When we dance again, all our troubles seems to fade away. This is how I feel when you take me to some places that I've never been. When we dance that I've never been. That I've never been. That I've never, ever, never been.
And we are live. Oh, yes, okay. There we go. You got some noise in the background. Let's go. Welcome to Generation Orange. As you guys know, I am host Sean Ringrose, and my co-host he's joining me this week.
What's up, guys? I know I haven't been around for a while. I haven't talked to y'all guys in a while, but I'm glad to be back. It's been busy. The beer industry right now is booming for some reason.
Gotta get them Coronas.
Yeah. Literally.
Nah,
So, Sean, how you been, man?
Been good, man. No Rona to report over here, so that's right now. That's living on cloud nine.
That's the goal right now, man. No Rona season. So luckily for me, I'm good. I had two little bits of a scare. Unfortunately, my wife's parents, my in-laws, they came out positive, and
oh no.
Yeah, man, it sucked. But I mean, they're doing well now. They've got retested and everything. They've been retested and they came out negative, and I think they went back to work this week already. I'm not too sure. But me and her father, we had gone fishing, and then like a couple days later, he came out positive. And I was like, oh crap.
Great.
So I went to go get tested. Yeah, I went to go get my brain tickled. It was no fun, but it wasn't as bad as everybody made it seem. And then after that, when I got my results, that I got negative. HR called me and said that one of my accounts had been hit with the Rona. A couple of clients of ours, that account, came out positive, and I was like, "Oh crap!" I was there that day. So and there I go again. Yeah. So it's crazy, man. But just mask up. Try to keep a distance from everybody as much as you can, and try to stay chill and relax.
Yeah, for sure. Hold on a second. I gotta set it to record the game here. Realizing I didn't have it set to record. Yeah, guys, if you're not aware, MLS is literally back. Technically, as of right now, the match hasn't started. Probably will kick off at like 7:10, 7:15, as per MLS standard protocol. It's on ESPN, actual ESPN, so it's on your cable box if you have cable. If you're not, maybe ESPN 3 if that's even still a thing. I don't know how you can stream it otherwise, but ESPN for sure on cable. It's on right now, or technically it's on commercials or something. I don't know. It might be a hype video. I don't know. But yeah, it's on. It's back. Thanks, Delta. It's back. It's on, and we're gonna have MLS soccer in some way, shape, or form very, very, very soon, in like 5 minutes. Which means we have Dynamo soccer to talk about again, which is great news, to say the least, to some extent, although much has been said by multiple people. I would, if I had a choice right now, I think I would much rather the players be home and safe than dealing with the possibility of whatever may burst the bubble, so to speak. As much as I want soccer to happen, MLS soccer especially, the players first and foremost are definitely on our minds. I know on my mind. Don't want to see any players either A, get injured severely, or B, catch anything while they're there, because that would be really, really bad. Yeah.
Hey, man, I mean, I was listening to Glenn's show last night, and he had Christian Ramirez on the show, and his wife is pregnant and about to go into labor in a week or two or something like that. And those type of situations, obviously, if she does go into labor, he says so. He's going to leave the bubble. He's going to go attend to her, which is obviously the right decision to do. Family comes first, and but still, I mean, you don't want to do that and then accidentally go over there with her, and then you have the Rona with you, and you don't even know, during that time period, especially in the sensitive time like that, your wife's, giving birth to your kid or anything like that. So hoping for all the best for the players. Yeah, obviously I'm glad that MLS soccer is back, but I'm the same boat as you. I wish it was under a more safer environment, and more an environment where we knew for sure the players would be safe and have no effects or be in contact with the Rona for any kind of reason. But obviously that's not the case with all the news of FC Dallas going out, Nashville getting hit, and other players as well. So it's what it is.
Yeah. And speaking of Frisco getting sent home, they had 10 players, well, players and staff, totaled 10, that tested positive within 3 days of them arriving in Orlando. Two players had tested positive before they took off, so they stayed back in Dallas anyways to begin with, and then they had another like three as soon as they got off the flight that tested positive, and then they went ahead and initiated testing for every player after they got to the hotel, or were on their way to the hotel, whatever. And then they had another like five or three or four that tested after that positive, and so it's been rough for Frisco, but I'm look, enemies for 90, but definitely Texas for life, and glad to see that they were sent home. I'd hate to think that they would have to sit there and manage that sort of environment with that many players and staff having tested positive. It's just in the best interest of their entire organization for all of them to get back home and rest and self isolate and everything else that's necessary to go along with that. You mentioned Nashville. They've now had a total of 9 players test as positive, which is a substantial number. Yeah, so as a result of all the positive tests, though, MLS has had to postpone 3 of the matches for MLS's back tournament. We're still awaiting word at this point as to how it's gonna shake out with Frisco no longer being in Group B. There were supposed to be 3 matches played for that group, and I'm not sure how that third match shakes out without Frisco being there. How do points shake out? It's a really big question. That's not kind of in the periphery, kind of something that elephant in the room type thing of how does this work? You've said that these matches are going to determine regular season, are going to apply to the regular season results and regular season standings with points, and now you have Frisco not even playing in it, which means that A, they're not getting any points from the tournament, but also B, the matches that were scheduled at Seattle and other Group B teams, I think Seattle, Vancouver, and I don't remember who the third one was, but these teams that were supposed to play them aren't able to play them because the team's not even there. How did do they just get 3 points? Do they get 1 point? How is this all going to work? And they haven't released any of those details yet.
I think from my standpoint, I mean, if I was in the commissioner's shoes or in the league shoes, where I had to, kind of make way for what's going to happen, is take that group of 6, and then take one of them out there, and then obviously Nashville's falling out, so they would be out of that group as well. So that group would turn into a group of 4, and then you can replace whoever you want to take out from that group of 6 and put them into Group B.
Well, I mean, you say that, but you can't. You already know that it's not going to be Miami and it's not going to be Orlando because they're getting ready.
You already know that.
So you can't take one of them out. You've already taken Nashville out, so that means there's only 2 teams. It's either going to be Chicago and Nashville was the other team in that group. So, it's you can't take Nashville out of that group and put them in the other group because that's already a bad situation. So, again, there's a lot of moving pieces still left, and it's we're at a point where it's just going to be very interesting to see what happens from this point on when it comes to the tournament, when it comes to these matches. We were talking earlier, you and me, about this match that's about to take place between Inter Miami and Orlando City to kick off the tournament, and why, if this was a regular MLS match played in Orlando or played in Miami, how much different, it would be in terms of predicting it, in terms of calling the match, ahead of time, saying, hey, it's probably going to go to Miami. I would say 9 out of 10 times, if this is a regular MLS season match, Miami's taking it, and it's, it would be close, but I think Miami would edge out almost every time. Whereas in this environment, you got no crowd, you've got no supporters. We've seen it in Premier League, we've seen it in Bundesliga. When there's no fans, there's no stadium noise, that adrenaline level, right around the 50, 60th minute, that adrenaline level is so much lower. You don't have that to push you physically past that point that you're usually exhausted. And none of these teams are prepared for, MLS teams are prepared for a full 90-minute match. 5 subs is great over 3 different total of 5 subs over 3 different, you can use subs 3 different times, but I don't know. There's so much unknown, and I think even this first match is not going to answer all of the questions that are out there, and my struggle with that, and it goes back to what I said a month, 2 months ago. I feel like it was 2 months ago at this point, but we were talking about this back in April or May or wherever it was, and we were talking about, well, what does this look like? How do you handle it? What does MLS have to figure out? And I said back then, this is a logistical nightmare to have to figure out, and we're seeing it play out. And we've seen it play out with the Premier League. We've seen it play out with Bundesliga. We've seen it play out with other leagues. NWSL has done it fairly successfully so far, but they even had Orlando Pride that had to pull out and withdraw from the tournament because they had so many infected players. And it's just it's difficult as a player to kind of get up for a match when you don't have that fan support. And it's true as an away team as well. You get up when you hear those fans booing you. For most players, especially competitive players that have that competitive edge, they are driving for that boo. They are driving to hear that negative reaction from the crowd because it fuels them. And that's that adrenaline rush that they get from that moment walking out that tunnel, that the bright light moment that superstar athletes talk about all the time. As soon as the lights come on, I'm ready, let's go. But it's different when there's no crowd. It's just completely different. And like I said, we've seen it across all the different leagues. We saw it even with NWSL. They hadn't even played any matches before they had to postpone their season, start holding back their season and planning for something else. So they're doing the Challenge Cup, similar to MLS's back tournament in a way. But even the NWSL Challenge Cup, you're seeing it with some of these teams. Now, granted, they're missing a bunch of players that have elected not to play in the tournament or to stay home and not join the tournament, but it still shows the quality of play on the normal is definitely below that level that you expect out of the league and out of these teams.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's crazy because, like I mentioned in the chat, you go from playing in front of 40,000 people to playing in front of 40, which is basically just staff of both teams, and yeah, it's hard to get up for a game like that when you're just playing in that huge, empty, hollowed stadium. Especially, watching the Premier League and Bundesliga, and I guess they're playing outside here on Orlando, so we'll see how much of a difference that looks or whatever. Because I mean, watching the games yesterday and today, from the Premier League, I mean, it's weird, even though they try to play that crowd noise on the stations, it's still, it looks funny, man, and it doesn't look right. That's why it's a huge punishment when those clubs get those play behind closed doors type of punishments and stuff like that, because like you said, even if it's an away crowd, it's you that game day 18 against that whole city or that whole town or whatever. It's you against them, you against the world, basically. Yeah. And if it's your home game and it's your home team, you get up for those supporters, who are out there just cheering, hollering, yelling, giving it their all for all 90 plus, and you want to make good, the fact that you're playing in front of your crowd like that, want to make sure that you represent your team and your town and your city, and that you're doing really well. And obviously you're not going to have none of that today in this match with Orlando and Miami. But Sean, going back to, what we were talking about the Nashville and FC Dallas. So I'm looking at the groups right now. So Group A is where Nashville's at, and Group B is where FC Dallas is out, and they're already taken out. I don't see why Nashville wouldn't be taken out here pretty soon the way FC Dallas is, because obviously they've got 9 players tested positive. FC has 10, so that's not much of a difference. But the other three teams in Group A are NYFC, Philadelphia, and Chicago. So it would have to be one of those 3 teams that would replace Dallas in Group B, and then you would have 6 groups of 4. So that would make everything balance out.
Yeah, no, and again, that's it's a shame. You don't want to see teams have to bow out or have to pull out of a tournament like this. But at the same time, you would much rather have teams pulling out. Right now, I kind of wish they would have just had Nashville go ahead and withdraw from the tournament, because when you have that many players that have tested positive, you need to get them out of that environment. You need to not keep them in that environment, even if you have a way to isolate them from everybody else. It's the fact that you still have to have people delivering food. You still have to have people, they need the medicine. That it's not just the match day stuff or practice or whatever. There's a whole lot of support and care that has to go into that. And to think that they're keeping them there because they think they might be able to play when they've had 9 players test positive. I mean, it's clear they need to just go ahead and say that Nashville needs to be is going to withdraw, and that way they can start making the moves that are necessary from there. But it's
And also,
go ahead.
and also you got to think about it. This is Nashville's first season, so obviously they don't have the amount of players needed. Like let's say FC Dallas, who have a great academy, and they can call up players, to play in the first team or whatever. This is Nashville's first season. I'm not too familiar with their academy or how well they have as far as academy players available to go be promoted to the first team or whatever other affiliations they may have. But like it's being their first season in MLS, 9 players go down. I mean, a first team is basically 22 to 25 players on the squad, and then you have a couple obviously academy players who are training with the first team and things of that nature. But I'm not sure how many players they have realistically to field. I mean, so why would they even why are they postponing the inevitable? They just gotta call it what it is and just say, what, we're out, and that's it. It's an unfortunate situation. We're out.
I think fans would be more likely to understand if they just said it, came out and said it instead of trying to wait and delay. And this has been a common MLS theme over the years, and we've seen it in Houston tremendously a number of times when we have weather delays that last until 11, 15, 11, 20, 11:30, and then they kick off at 12 o'clock, and we're sitting there until 2, 3 o'clock in the morning watching a match. It's MLS does things a certain way, and it's a shame they do things a certain way because it really does set things up to for a lack of success at best, and usually at worst a complete and utter failure. And I'm hopeful that part of me is hopeful that they can play this tournament and they can finish it out, and then part of me is kind of pessimistic from the aspect of there's too much uncertainty right now, and the fact that they continue to try to press ahead is it's an unwise decision, to say the least.
I mean, and it's one of those things where you take our group, for example, the fact that, obviously Bella isn't playing for LAFC, Dos Santos isn't playing for Galaxy, and a couple other notable players not playing around in the league. It kind of takes that flair from it. I mean, obviously, as a Dynamo fan, I see the benefit. Our chances have improved, I guess, But still, I mean, that's not the way I go into matches as a supporter. If we're gonna be the best, I want to be the best. Obviously, Bella's when LAFC with Bella is a whole different beast. But even without him, and it's gonna be a tough match. But still, I mean, it's one of those things where if players are bowing out for whatever reason, and obviously I think Bella's reason was because he has a pregnant wife and things of that nature, so kind of similar to the Kristie Mewis situation. And Dos Santos, I think this is just a knee injury or something like that, nothing related to the Rona or anything like that. But still, I mean, you have players and notable players not making this tournament, and it kind of takes away from the excitement. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm excited that MLS is back. But I mean, what's another month if it would have helped improve the chances of all these teams being at full strength, and playing?
I mean, you say that on the flip side, we don't know in a month if that's going to be the case either.
Obviously.
I can, again, I'm in this weird position where I kind of understand, but then I also kind of am frustrated a bit I think as a human being, I have the frustrations over, you're putting these players into a situation that's not fair to them. You're putting the staff into situations that aren't fair to them because you want to get these matches played, because you want to get that TV revenue that you can, as much as you can, so you can pay the player salaries, etc. There's a lot that goes into that. On the flip side, Jake talking about NWSL, he says, he mentioned he's worried about the dash in Utah, hoping none of our sisters get the Rona out there. And then he says, what pisses him off is that Real Salt Lake may still admit fans into Rio Tinto for the semi-cup final or semifinals and final of the NWSL Challenge Cup. And even more to the point, they've said that they're going to have a Real Monarchs game the same night as the final. And they're going to allow fans for Real Monarchs to be in the stands as well. So And that's not until I think the end of July. But we're still talking, that's 3 weeks from now. And with what I've seen around the country, and ain't nobody ready for that.
No, I don't see it as a realistic thing to do. But the thing about these tournaments and these leagues right now is they're kind of allowing whatever state they're playing it in to kind of abide by whatever rules that the state is, and as the state allows you no room to allow a couple people to come in, or a couple fans, have a few thousand fans to come in, I guess they're going to do it. And I mean, we have that going on here with the, for those who haven't heard, there's a baseball tournament going around in Sugarland Stadium, where the Skeeters play, that 2,000 fans are able to go watch these players play, and that's in our backyard, over here in Sugarland. So it's not that's not happening. I mean, there's events going on that are gonna, I guess, take the risk to allow people to come in, and obviously they're gonna be as careful as they can. That stadium, that Skeeter Stadium, holds, I think, about 11 or 12,000. So to only allow 2,000 people in, obviously there's gonna be a lot of spacing in that stadium. So I'm thinking, but I don't know how many people they're trying to allow in that Real Tinto Stadium, or for that semifinal match and for the Monarchs match and all that good stuff. But hopefully man, I know one part of me says, well, eventually we're just gonna have to move forward, and we're either gonna be living with this, and we're gonna have to adapt to it. Another side of me of it obviously says, well, maybe we're going at this at too quick of a speed, and we need to relax a little bit and just be patient, because obviously as a society, and especially in America, we're like this, we're on the go, regardless of what time of day it is, and for everything to just be put on break, it's kind of an unusual feeling for all of us, and obviously when it's affecting the economy and affecting people's pockets and all this other stuff, you gotta take all those different variables into consideration as well when making these decisions. So we'll see, man. We'll see.
It's definitely, like I said, and I've said it all along, it's going to be interesting to watch how it all plays out. And I think, when you're talking about again, the logistical nightmare of trying to organize something of this nature in the middle of a pandemic, and again, we're not at the end of this pandemic, we're in the middle of still of it, and so trying to organize all of that and trying to figure out things like player testing on a consistent basis, because again, their intent is to test these players basically twice a day, to just make sure, even though they are taking the initiative to make sure that they're quarantined and isolating. It only goes so far. You still have to take the time to test them consistently to keep it at bay as best as possible, and isolate and quarantine if somebody does come up positive. So
And just to piggyback off that, before the show, I put the poll question of the week. Obviously, when I'm on the show, when I'm available to do the show, I do a poll question of the week, for us to interact and see what kind of opinions you have, depending on what's going on that week or that time period, and MLS or Dynamo related. And the question was, obviously with the tournament coming back, do you think the MLS is back tournament will be completed, or do you think it will not be completed because of the Rona? And the final results is very close. 52% say yes, and 48% say no. So it's basically a toss up between everybody thinking whether or not it's going to finish or not. I'm gonna be optimistic, and I said yes. I think it's going to finish. Well, I guess the better optimistic part of me is hoping it's going to finish. So hopefully we can carry on and move forward. Obviously, but I can see the many reasons for it not to be completed. But what do you think, Sean?
Again, there are a myriad of reasons why this thing may not finish out, and I think the fact that we have not even really begun yet, or we will very, very shortly, and we've already had to withdraw one team, and we're on the cusp of withdrawing another team, and we still have teams that haven't even arrived yet at this point, I think. Maybe. Let's see. Plus, no, I guess they've all arrived.
Already.
Yeah, they've all arrived at this point. I think the last teams came in on the 3rd or the 4th. But the fact that we're still sitting here and there are still teams waiting for things to take place, and the more these teams interact, we've seen it thankfully in I think Premier League where they've managed to mitigate the spread, and they've not really had recently any pop-ups of the virus among players or staff, and hopefully that's a sign that maybe this can complete out. And I'm going to continue to hope and remain as positive as possible that they've got it figured out enough that they can do this properly and isolate properly and be ready to go. But I guess we're gonna find out very soon exactly how long they're going to be able to push this thing and how long they're going to be able to go. And the other side of it is we've been watching NWSL Challenge Cup, and they've done a very good job up there as well in Utah of isolating enough and creating this bubble that they haven't had any additional tests come back positive either. So, maybe it's a sign that they're getting things figured out, at least from this aspect. And, they've proven it in England. They've proven it in Germany that they can manage it from a league perspective. Now it's just a matter of MLS and NWSL continuing to maintain the protocols necessary to keep everybody safe.
So, being as optimistic as possible, let's say everything goes well and this tournament does play out. How are the Dynamo going to do, Sean?
So I actually have that question, prediction results on Dynamo. So, for me, I think Dynamo, so you said it earlier. You got Novella for, Novella, not intentional. Novella for LAFC. You've got No Dos Santos for LA Galaxy. Portland's a team that can always surprise. Other teams can always surprise people. But I think they have Valeri. Valeri and Blanco are two fantastic players that can create kind of out of nowhere. But for my money, I think the Dynamo plays second in their group. I think it's a pretty close group, all things said, but I do think the Dynamo plays second in the group. I think they win two of the matches. I think they win against Galaxy, and I think they win against Portland. I do think that they either draw or lose against LAFC, but I don't think it's going to be a blowout. I think it'll be close. But again, it's tough to predict these because we very well could be in a situation where the Dynamo run the group because these teams aren't used to this heat and humidity, because the teams aren't used to no crowd noise. There's a lot involved with this. To some extent, we have to kind of joke about it, but the Dynamo are probably the best ready for no crowd noise, right? Because the BBVA is always empty. So
the emptiest stadiums from last season is a help for them.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't know. We'll find out, right? But I joke, but it really, it's so hard to kind of predict these things. I think we'll see LAFC. I honestly think we'll see them struggle more than people are expecting, because you're talking about a team that's used to that crowd noise, used to that crowd support at home, and that's a big drop off. And then Novella either. That's a major drop off.
Well, obviously, there's no denying Vela's quality. I mean, he was the MLS MVP for a reason last season. I mean, and ever since he's been in MLS, he's torched the league, and he's been doing astronomical things, in this league, and he's number one player, if not the top player in the league, top one or two for sure. But but LAFC they're a good deep team. I mean, and obviously they still have another beast on the other side of the ball, and Rossi. And let's not forget, they got a young 19-year-old Uruguayan, and Brian Fernandez, who I think is one of those players to watch this season. Well, if we have a regular season or whatever, he's going to be one of those players to watch. And then given the fact that he's not going to have Vela in front of him, because usually they play Rossi at the 9 and, obviously Vela at the right wing and him at the left. But now he can play his natural spot on the right, Rossi on the left, and I think Joe Mande at the number 9 spot, which I don't think is that huge of a drop off, given the fact that obviously they're losing the number 1 player in the league. So I still think that, it's going to be a tough match for the Dynamo, for that match against LAFC. Obviously, I don't think it's going to be any kind of blowout or anything like that, especially being, first match or whatever, first couple matches in. I would like a draw in that match. I think maybe a draw is possible. But yeah, I do agree with you. I think the Dynamo do come out of this group in second place. LA Galaxy, obviously, they got Chicharito, but the player I'm more concerned about is Pavon. But aside from, their starting 11, their backup and their bench ain't really nothing. They don't really have any that much depth in their under squad, so I'm not too worried about them. Portland Timbers, obviously, Valeri, Blanco, like you mentioned earlier, the Chara brothers. We'll see what happens with those guys. But the thing about having a player like Valeri is that he can change the game when he's on, and that's the scary part about the Timbers. They do have those two playmakers and Blanco and Valeria that can change the game real quick if everything's going steady and the Dynamo are steady with a 1-0 lead in the next 10 minutes they drop off and bam bam 2 goals. It's how it goes in MLS. But yeah, I tend to agree, especially now that Vela is out. I think the Dynamo will come out second in the group and maybe might be first in the group, depending on if they come out first. It'll probably be something because of the goal differential. But I think the group is a lot tighter now, obviously. But I think the Dynamo do make it to the knockout rounds.
So let me ask you this: who do you think is advancing from their group? Obviously, Houston. You said they're either first or second. So Houston and who else?
Yeah, so I mean, obviously, I think it's between LAFC and the Dynamo. I think Portland has a good chance of being one of the third place teams, if not a second place team in that group. I don't think they'll win the group, but like I said, it also depends on how the Dynamo come out too. I mean, Portland is that type of team that they do have the talent to go out there and play, and they have a coach who's willing to go out there and attack and let them play. And so, I mean, my prediction would be LAFC, Dynamo, and Portland advancing as a third place team.
All right. Yeah, and obviously with Frisco out and Nashville out, it will be interesting to also see how they handle third place teams. If you have two of the third place teams advancing, then that slightly changes the number of available slots. If you think about it, they originally had a third place team automatically, the third place team automatically advancing from Group A. But if Nashville has to pull out and they have to realign, does that ultimately change things? I guess we'll find out.
We'll see. So the original format would be the next 3 highest ranked teams in group stage would go out. But now that if you eliminate obviously FC Dallas and Nashville, and you will only be able to take 2 third place teams or the 2 highest ranked teams, however you want to call it. So obviously,
that's not true, because you're still going to have the same number of playoff teams. That's not going to change. You're still going to have the same number of teams in the knockout round. That number doesn't change. It's just you know what I'm saying? Like, it's not like we're removing 2 spots from the knockout rounds just because we take Frisco and Nashville out, but we're going to remove those 2. Sorry, you don't get them 2 slots. You don't get those anymore. Come on now, man. I don't know if I want you as a GM or a
no.
GM,
It's
but,
you
league commissioner anywhere.
For some, I'm always thinking about it as far because I'm thinking about it as like a World Cup structure, Euro structure, right? So, but there's 8 groups in those structures, and this is 6 groups. They're still keeping the same 6 groups. I'm for some reason I was thinking 8 groups for some reason. So, it would still stay the same. The next 3 highest ranked. So, at the next.
But that's my thing though. That does with Okay, so let's say Frisco and we know Frisco's out. Let's say Nashville's out. Let's say they realign, and then all 6 of the groups end up with 4 teams each, right?
Okay.
So then you still have the same number of playoff spots, or
Are you moving out of Group A? Chicago, Philadelphia, or NYFC, so that way we can make it easy.
Probably Philly, and go ahead and move them in with the
spot where Dallas, Seattle.
Yeah, and so you have 6 groups, and you have 8. You have 10 spots available. No, you have 12 slots available for. 12, 13, 14.
It'll still be 16. It'll still be
16 slots. Yeah, and you have how many teams? If you have 4 and 6, that's 24. So basically, you have 8 teams that don't make it. And only 6 groups. So that means you're gonna have 4. You're gonna have
the top 2 of each group. Which makes 12, and you're gonna have 4 third place teams.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah. But see, having 4 third place teams means you're removing that automatic third place team from the first group, because they shouldn't automatically advance that third team in that group, because that's unfair now.
Yeah, so I think the way that they're trying to avoid that is going by the next three highest ranked teams. So I don't know how. I don't. So let's say worst
They
case.
were they were doing it before. The reason that they did it before, where that from Group A that third place team automatically advanced, is because they had
Yeah.
6 teams. So not every team in that group was going to face each other. But now, if you have balanced groups across the board, all 6 groups have 4 teams. Now every team is facing its own, facing the same number, facing their group. All teams in their group. So now it's now you do just go with the top 4 third place teams and they advance, which is what it should have been to begin with, and they should have kept them even. But hashtag MLS going to MLS.
Yeah. So yeah. So I mean, yeah. I understand what you're saying now. So it'll be the
Sorry, I
top.
know it's confusing.
It'll be the top 2 teams of each group, which is 12 teams, and then the next 4.
Yep. The next 4. Well, we can't say the next 4 because theoretically you could have a 4th place team that ends up tied with the 3rd place team that would advance. So I know what you're saying. It's the next 4 third place teams based on points.
Yeah, basically. Although like you said, MLS gonna MLS because the way they have this scripted, it says also the next 3 highest ranked teams. It doesn't say necessarily from one of each group. It can be the next. So let's say, for example, Group F, since we're familiar with that group with the Dynamo, right? Let's say LAFC ends up with 7 points. The Dynamo end up with 7 points, but LA Galaxy and Toronto end up with
Portland.
with well, no, it would be what 4-4. Oh, it wouldn't be 4-4. No, it would ease themselves out because there's no way that a 4th place team from a group would be able to make it if there's yeah, it will work itself out. Yeah. So even if they word it as the next 4 highest ranked teams, there's no way a 4th place team from either group can make it because it would have to be unless everybody just tied everybody and everybody came out with 3 points.
Well, no, because you could have 2 teams that win 1 match each and then draw their other 2 matches, and you could have the 3rd and 4th place team win a match each and draw the other 2 matches.
That would give.
Well, I guess no, you couldn't.
No. Yeah. So like
the highest you could have would be 4 points. The highest 4th place team you could have would be 4 points.
Exactly. The highest 4th place team can have is actually 2 points.
No, 4 points because you could have a win, a draw, and a loss. You have 3 matches.
So then everybody.
You could have every team win, draw, lose. You could have every team in that group win, draw, lose.
Under that scenario, if that's what I'm saying. The only way a 4th place team would go if every team had a win, loss, draw, which would make everybody in the league in that group.
All I'm gonna say is I'm gonna laugh. I'm gonna laugh when this tournament ends up. Every team ends up with a win, loss, draw in their group stage matches, and it comes down to goal differential. And we're talking 5 teams are all tied with 1 goal differential each. Yeah. This is going to be a crazy and that's the thing, right? There's no way to predict how this tournament is going to go. As much as we want to say, well, this team has the better players, this team has the worst players, it doesn't matter in this tournament because all of that is predicated on how these teams have played when players have played when there's an audience or there's a crowd, and there's no crowd. And I keep coming back to that because they've said it in the Premier League. Coaches have said it, players have said it, managers have said it. It is a completely different environment, and it's so difficult for players to get that adrenaline rush going to keep going for that full 90. We're going to see a lot of last-minute goals in this tournament.
And that's the difference, and that's why tournament soccer is such a huge thing. It's that's why the Euros and the World Cup and Copa America are such huge turnouts and viewership, because tournament soccer is a different beast from long regular season soccer.
Yeah.
And because however you match up people, I know obviously there's some disparities in some leagues and some nations, but you can have teams beat or draw a team that you thought you were going to just smoke by 5 goals and ruin the whole thing, and then there you go, you're in a win now situation because that first match you tied against a team that you thought you were going to beat or you were going to just thrash and you didn't, and now you're behind the 8 ball and now you got to make up games and make up points. And you only have 2 games left to do it. And that's what makes tournament soccer so great and such a great a thrilled ride because you mess up one game and you can really hurt your chances of progressing.
Miami almost had the first goal of the tournament there.
I
That was
saw
close. That
I
was
saw
really close. That was a good ball in.
Yeah, that's why I
by
kind of
winger.
right there outside on the peripheral vision. I was like, oh, and
So yeah,
oh,
if
man.
you see me, by the way, during the show and I'm turning this direction right here, that's because my TV is right here that has the tournament on, and so I'm watching the match, kind of side eyeing the match every so often.
Yeah, guys, and I have it right here.
Hold on, guys,
And
we got to see a goal here. Oh, good.
they're on the iPad, so
So far, this match has been a little bit more free flowing than I thought it would be. There's been some choppiness, but I think these two teams have looked like they're more game
right
ready,
there.
match ready
There
than
goes-
some of the
oh.
Premier League teams have. Yeah, you're behind.
Yeah. Oh, well,
I
okay.
told you'd be about 10 seconds behind or so. That's kind of
Yeah.
funny.
What time are you? What time do you have?
9:38 right now.
Okay. Yeah, I have 9:28.
Yeah, you about 10 seconds behind. Exactly like I said.
Anyways,
So
yeah.
But all right, so enough about MLS's back tournament. Actually, no, we are gonna do one more thing because the Dynamo do play 5 days from now. I want
Prediction.
your bold prediction. Well, I want our prediction for that match against LAFC, but I want the bold prediction from that match as well, or from the group. I'll give you from
Okay.
that match or from the entire group.
Okay. So what's the first question you want answered then?
Give me your actual prediction for the first match.
So first prediction for LAFC Dynamo. My prediction. You know what? I'm gonna say it's gonna be a 2-2 draw.
All right.
A 2-2 draw. You know why? Because both of these teams like to run, and I think there's and if these teams can start off real quick and get off the first real quick and just keep going and run out, you're gonna have a lot of players who won't have the stamina to keep up, as particular defenders or whatever, because they're not used to running so much. But I can see goals be plenty in this first match. 2-2 draw.
So Nestor, he gave his prediction. Producer Nestor over here. We have a prediction of 2-1 Dynamo win for Nestor. I could see that happening. That seems likely. So I'm gonna give you a prediction. I'm actually gonna. God, I'm gonna get so much flack for saying this. I'm gonna go
3-0 LAFC.
No, I'm going bold with this one. Even though it's bold, I don't feel like it's that bold.
Okay.
I'm actually going 4-2 Dynamo.
Wow.
The reason for that is this is a slightly shorter pitch, so that favors a team that likes to run and counter and press and all of that, right? And that plays right in the Dynamo's hands. It's hot and humid right now. Plays right into the Dynamo hands. Number 3, the players for the Dynamo are absolutely geeked for this tournament. They are ready to play this tournament, and they're ready to go out there and win. Just like the Dash went out in their very first match and the second match, and they've shown that they want to score goals and they want to score them absolutely ridiculously. I think the Dynamo just come out on a different gear. I think LAFC, honestly, even though they've got Bob Bradley, coaching, I do think that they come out a little sluggish on this in their first match. I think they're going to have a little bit of trouble getting that gear going initially. I think the Dynamo exploit it, and I think they just come out on fire. 14.
And another thing that can go along with what you're saying is, this is Albert Elisa's first game. He didn't play the first 2 games, so I know he's going to be excited to play as well. And he's going to be out there motivated. Because remember, he's going to be out there motivated because Europe's watching. So we'll see.
Yeah, and Quintero will be fully back. You're gonna have full Quintero. You're gonna have full Memo. You're gonna have full Elise. You're gonna have full Tomas. You're gonna have full Morrow. I mean, I almost feel bad for defenders, right? That's just not fair.
But like you said, the same way the Dynamo play. I mean, LAFC plays the same way. I mean, and they got quality players as well. So 4-2, that's pretty bold. I think 2-2 for me was kind of pushing it because it is the first game back. But 4-2, that'll be something exciting to see, especially if the Dynamo can pull it off. Who's scoring the goal?
That way. I got 2 for Elise. I got a brace for Elise. I got 1 for Morrow, and I have 1 for Memo in the dying minutes of the match.
Okay. Almost sneaks in there.
I have a hat trick and assist for Quintero on the night.
You have a hat trick of assists for Quintero?
Yes, sir.
Okay. they're out there going. We gonna make sure that everybody notices the fact that everybody always complaining that we didn't make a quote unquote big signing this offseason. Show out.
Yeah. We'll talk about that here in a minute. But before we talk about that, oh hey, what's up, Sam? Nestor, I do have to kind of laugh that Nestor said, "Oh yeah, I forgot I had YouTube chat open." Nestor. He's still getting used to being a producer. Sorry, guys. Also, Nestor, I didn't get a chance to say this, but congratulations on the new job. I hope everything's going well. I know we talked about it, and it is, but I just want to say congratulations and hope it continues going well for you, sir.
Congrats, Nestor.
Also, congratulations on renting a new house. Hopefully, that continues to go well for you guys out there, you and AJ. I'm sure you guys are having fun with that. Hopefully, your internet continues to be amazing. That would be amazing for us as well, for obvious reasons. But let's keep it in the theme of MLS. I know we said we might push this to a little bit later, but I think I kind of want to stick on the MLS wagon here for a minute, which means, Jake, if you're still tuned in, we will talk Dash. We have it on the schedule.
Yes,
we'll
sir.
just do it in the second hour. We are going 2 hours tonight, by the way, or at least an hour and a half. I kind of want to be done by like 8:45 so I can go prep to go watch the Dash play tonight, but I digress. So let's talk Austin FC. Let's talk Austin FC. They announced today, or yesterday, or 2 days ago. I don't know, I'm losing track. They announced their first player signing with Rodney Reyes, a 20-year-old Paraguayan winger. Transfer fee is reported to be $2.75 million, $2.75 million. Give me your thoughts, and then I want to know if you had to compare this signing to a current MLS player. And in this type of kind of signing to an MLS player, kind of who do you think this kind of fits the mold of? And let me make it even easier for you. Not an MLS player, but give me a Dynamo player.
Okay, so I'm excited about these type of signings for MLS overall. Especially these young. He's 19, 20 years old, something like that. Paraguayan. He's already playing in their U21 squad for Paraguay's national team. So he's on the cusp. He's that up and coming player. And that's always good to see, especially because you want, as MLS in general, you want to have those young players that you're progressing and up in their levels to the point where you're gonna go sell them and make some money back, and then go invest it again. Because obviously that's the type of league that we are right now. We're not that we're gonna go sign the biggest, baddest players in the world. So I enjoy these type of signings, and these are the type of signings, quite frankly, that I wish the Dynamo would make more of. I'm not too worried about the big splashy names, or the big name, whatever stuff like that. I want to hear hear about them scouting Uruguay, Paraguay, Argentina, them picking up players for $1 million, $1.5 million transfer fee, $2 million, stuff like that. Yeah, that's the kind of things I want to see, because it's good to see these players develop and to see them raise their game ups, and they're hungry, they're motivated, man. These are the players right now at that age that are hungry, motivated. They see the next level. It's in their footsteps. They're one foot in, one foot out, and they're trying to go to the next level. So what better time to have them on your team when they're in that mode, when they're trying to get to the next level. Excuse me. And if I had to a player comp, I saw the example you put on the notes, but I'm gonna go a little different route. I'm gonna go with a Mauro Manotas signing. So
Okay.
when we signed Mauro, Mauro was kind of signed out of nowhere. Like 4 or 5 years ago now? Man, time's
It's been a while.
So I mean, he was just a little skinny Colombian kid, that came out of kind of realistically, I mean, I didn't know anything about him prior to him coming here, and that's because I follow South American soccer. So and it's one of those things where he came out of nowhere, and then all of a sudden, at the end of the season, he scored a couple goals here. Then the next season, he scored a couple more goals there, and then he kind of showed out in the U.S. Open Cup. And then when he had his big 18 or 19 goal season, goal scoring season, that's when he kind of just introduced himself to MLS and to the broader global soccer, because not obviously because of that season and seasons after that, he had Europe coming. And what Mauro's 23, 24 now? We had him since he was 18, 19. That's a progression I'm talking about. You want to get them young, really young, so you can develop them, and then you can sell them off for a profit, and then the whole circle thing again. Reinvest
Yeah.
the money, and go get some more young players and do it all over again.
Yeah, for sure. No, I agree. I put in the notes, and you kind of alluded to it, but in the notes I said, I feel like this signing very much echoes kind of the Albert Elise type of player, and I only did that comparison because the reported transfer fee that we paid for Elise after we loaned him in is roughly about the same. Now, it's important for us to note for MLS fans that Rodney Reyes will not officially start with Austin FC until the end of this 2020 season. He begins with the 2021 season for Austin FC, which makes sense because they're supposed to come in next year. Obviously, I'm sure they have various language in the contract that is specific to COVID-related pandemic stuff that, should things happen and matches not be played until middle of 2021 for some reason. God absolutely forbid. But if it were to happen, then they would only have him for half a season, not the whole season. Something to that extent, I'm sure, is in that contract. But either way, I do think it's a decent signing. But I also have to wonder. We need to see how they build the team. I do think that's a big part of this. Kudos to Austin FC for nabbing Claudio Reyna as their kind of GM. I think
Original
that's
Captain America.
exactly. I think that's a good individual to have in that spot, in that position in the organization, because he knows the U.S. soccer system. He knows the academy system. He knows he knows that whole process. He knows global as well. He knows the Mexican soccer Liga MX side of things as well a little bit. He's got contacts all over the place.
English.
He's friends with guys like Boca Negra, currently Atlanta United's GM, and other GMs and other presidents and things like that of other teams. He knows them. He's worked with them in the past for various reasons as well. So kudos to them for nabbing him, because I think it's a great person to put in that position and someone who I think could excel. Now, with that being said, this is their big signing currently. I say currently because, of course, there's still a long way to go. Yeah, it's their first signing. I still say, he's probably going to be their biggest initially out of the gate. But, $3 million for your first signing on a transfer fee compared to what we've seen other teams spending, hopefully, now again, it all is based upon whatever happens next for Austin. And if the rumors out there of them trying to land Vincent Janssen from Rayados, trying to land him, and supposedly putting in a $20 million, dollar offer. I don't think that's even remotely possible, but let's say it is. If that's the case, I'm gonna shut up. But let's just say that doesn't happen, and the highest that they spend on a transfer fee this offseason is anywhere from, or this season / offseason is anywhere from $3 to $5 million. At that point, as a Dynamo fan, not a current fan or not a current, not one of us, best way to put this, but one of those one of those fans that likes to tout the idea that every team out there is spending more money and you have to spend more money than the Dynamo are spending. Do you
play that role?
Huh? You'll play the devil's advocate role? Thanks.
You want to play the role?
Yeah. That. Do you think though that if Austin FC come in and they go that route where they don't spend the big money, should that, and let's say Miami don't end up spending big money, because right now they haven't really spent big money to bring in players. If this continues and this trend continues and we see more teams going this route, is that enough for those fans, for you, Mr. Devil's Advocate, to say, okay, maybe the Dynamo don't need to spend that big money. They should spend more, but they don't need to spend it on a single player to get better.
No, we also got to keep in mind. Lose you, Sean?
No, I'm still here. I'm listening.
Oh, okay. Sounds weird. It's different now, but anyways, keep going. Given the fact that some of the rules change next season, there's more possibilities of signing higher quality players or higher quality players, because of the rule change, because of CBA and all that stuff. I think as a Dynamo fan, as the Dynamo fan first, before I go into my devil's advocate role, I think that it'd be great to see a team like Austin come in and kind of push, the Dynamo, because obviously we see FC Dallas, the way they run their thing. They're running all their teams. They're growing their academy. Obviously, probably the best academy in MLS, uh, and that's how they build their team, right? So obviously, the Dynamo are kind of trying to do that now. We're a little behind the eight ball because it took us a while to get to that position. We're trying to bring up academy players. We signed the coach that obviously dealt with the U.S. Academy, the U20s and underneath, and obviously brought in Paul to run the academy. And we're kind of trying to follow that format. But if Austin FC comes in and just starts spending money, and they just blow the balls out of MLS, and they're in our backyard now, it's gonna kind of push the Dynamo, I think. Oh, I would hope, into a position where, like, look, man, we can't allow this new team to just come and bully us in our state. And it's one thing when LAFC comes in, or LA Galaxy. Obviously LAFC had to match up with LA Galaxy to get any kind of functionality over there, right? Atlanta United, when they came in, they had to go spin big because Atlanta sports, to be honest, is very fair weather. The fact that Atlanta United has been able to amass the amount of fans that they have in these last 2-3 years that they've been in existence is just amazing. Obviously, that's the level of investment that Arthur Blank has put into that team. Now, if I'm the devil's advocate, yeah, man, I need the Dynamo to spin, especially if Austin FC is coming in here trying to make $20 million for Jansen, a player who, with all due respect, hasn't really hit the floor running anywhere. After he left the Dutch league, I mean, he had a little stint in Spurs, didn't do anything. I forgot where he was at prior before he
What are you
went
talking about? He was a Champions League standout. No, I'm just kidding. Just kidding.
and and obviously last season, his first season with Monterrey, he didn't hit the ground running either. If it wasn't for the injury to I forgot who got injured, Fuentes More, he wouldn't had any shot. I mean, he showed up in the playoffs. Don't get me wrong, for them, he did really well for them, but I don't know if that's $20 million worth. And yeah, but if they do come in here and they spin big, Austin FC, I'm devil's advocate here. Yes, I need the Dynamo to start spending money. I need the Dynamo to start looking to expand their scouting system, or whatever system they claim that they have, because I haven't seen anything and the likeliness of them coming close to signing any kind of player of quality. You know, Darwin Quintero is great, and he has a great history from Club America and Santos and all that great stuff. But I mean, he's 32 years old, and he chose Minnesota United over you, years prior. So I mean, that's not really saying much. So yeah, I'm gonna need the Dynamo to pick it up. Playing devil's advocate here again, obviously. So
I mean, yeah, of course, if they spent 20 million on a Vincent Janssen and he comes in and he's a total flop, then we all kind of laugh, and it doesn't matter how good the rest of the team is. If he's a flop and they've spent 20 million on him, look, you are definitely not gonna recoup that spending in merchandise or in ticket sales just because you spent it on a guy. If it's Vincent Janssen, that's not going to get you any ticket sales. It's really not. Maybe 5 to 10 tickets total, but it's not going to be it's not going to be a big winner like a Vela or I struggle to say this out loud, but even a Chicharito, it's not going to be that type of a signing.
Well, I mean, as far as namesake, no. Even though he played for Rayados, it doesn't matter, man. Jansen isn't that big of known brand name, and let's be real. The reason Vela and Chicharito are big because they play for Mexico. Mexico's our southern brother, and they're crazy. They're crazy for soccer down there.
Yeah.
And and that doesn't mean that he doesn't come over here and maybe he's worth every penny. Like I said, I mean, who would have thought Joseph Martinez would have been worth these? I mean, he's worth every penny and much more. I would have paid double the fee, that Arthur Blank played. If I knew I was going to get that kind of production out of Joseph Martinez, and nobody knew that coming in. Realistically, I mean, he failed in Serie A. He wasn't doing nothing, and we kind of gave him a second chance at soccer, and realistically, and he's blowing it up here in MLS, man, and giving himself another opportunity to maybe go back to Europe and do it big over there if he wants to. But like I said, what you're referring to as far as Austin FC, if they go the route of just signing young players, let's say 2 to 3 million or maybe even $4 million transfer fees, if they sign four, 5, 6 of those type of players within the range of 19 to 20, 21-year olds, 22-year olds, I think that's a great start. It's a great foundation, man. I mean, the thing is, everybody, especially for expansion team, what's hard for them is that they have to follow up LAFC, Atlanta United. Those two teams are just so what they were able to accomplish. Obviously, they had the financial backing to do what they did. But those two teams were able to accomplish in such a short period of time, it's crazy. You got to kind of put them more into the Minnesota Uniteds, the Nashville's, wherever else came in the last couple of years. But yeah, I mean, it's. I think if Austin
Miami.
FC goes that route, depending on what kind of players they bring in, because there's a lot of big name young South American players down there, and if they get one that's highly touted and he comes in here and just wrecks it, like how Almiron did for Atlanta United, or how Rossi's doing for LAFC right now. I mean, it could be a game changer. And I know there's a lot of Dynamo fans in Austin right now. And hopefully, with that, don't have any change of guards and have some Dynamo fans transfer over and become Austin FC fans, because the ownership is a lot more up to par with MLS 3.0 or 4.0, whatever point oh we're at nowadays. And no,
It's called MLS 0.0. It's MLS 0.0.
Yeah,
That's where we're at now.
I don't know, man. It's gonna be crazy, but I think it brings the level of excitement, because if Austin FC comes in and they do push the fan base over here, and do push the quality of soccer in Texas, to where, for the most part, the Dynamo have been the lead dog. I mean, yeah, FC Dallas had a little bit of a 2 or 3 year stretch there where they had Supporter Shield and a U.S. Open Cup, but I mean, for the most part, we've been the number one team in Texas. But if Austin FC comes in and they just the doors open and they just run away with it in their first couple of years, then yeah, there's going to be a little bit of backlash from the supporter group for the Dynamo. And I think it's warranted, man. What do you think?
So before I answer that, I want to ask you a question. Do you think that, let's say that Austin FC do spring, the 20 million for Vincent Janssen again? I don't see it happening. Let's say they do.
For a type of player.
Do you think that is a more or less would be something you could equate to like a reactionary kind of, we got to do something to keep up with the Atlanta United, the LA Galaxy, the LAFC?
See, this is the situation we're in. Dynamo, unfortunately, the last couple of years have been bottom of the table teams, right? If it was flipped around and let's say we've made the playoffs the last 4 out of the 5 years instead of missing the playoffs the last 4 out of 5 years, it'd be a different story, I think, because we have a winning culture. And now we don't have that, and nor do we know if we're going to accomplish that. I mean, the Tab has only been here for this year, and he's only managed 2 games, so we don't know what we have yet, right? There's a lot of out in the air. We don't know what's going to happen with Elise. We don't know what's going to happen with Mauro. We don't know what's going on. What players are going to come in? What kind of players are they looking for? Whatever kind of deal. Now, trust me, if Tab and Paul and Matt and the whole front office says, you know what, we're going to call up academy players, and those academy players come up and they make a playoff run with just academy players and a couple of veterans, great. That's awesome. That shows to how great of a coach Tab Ramos is, and how great of a scouting system and how great of an academy we built, and all the great stuff. But if we're signing up all these academy players and they're just playing, games, and they're losing badly, and there's no structure and and they're not looking well and it's not looking good, and we're gonna they have to have a different type of plan and see what they can do to out of that bottom of the table and continue to rise up, man. Because I mean, how much longer can the Dynamo be a bottom of a table team and have this support? It gets to
Let me
a point. Gets to a
go ahead.
point where you're just like, man, I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm a soccer fan, and if I'm with a team, I'm with a team when they're up and when they're down. But we're talking about that 60% of the team of fans where they're kind of, oh, we're there when they're winning, but we're not there when they're losing.
Sure. No, when I asked the question, I'm gonna rephrase it slightly. Do you think that it push? Do you think that it again, if Austin FC come in and they spend 20 million for Vincent Janssen, and then obviously this 2.75 million for Rodney Reyes, do you think that is Austin FC reacting to what Atlanta has done? How much
Oh, okay, okay, okay.
LAFC have
I
spent?
see what you're saying.
I'm glad you talked about things in the way you
Yeah,
did, but I also want that answered too, because it is important for us to
yeah.
discuss that as well.
So I think with the hype that Austin FC comes in, because let's be frank, when Atlanta came in at the same time with Minnesota, right? There was a lot more hype behind Atlanta than there was Minnesota. The same thing with right now with Inter Miami and Nashville. There's a lot more hype with Inter Miami than there was with Nashville, right? And I think like we spoke, like I said earlier when we were offline, dude, I didn't even remember that Charlotte was the MLS
I
team.
know,
I mean,
right?
with Austin FC, right? So until today, when I find out they signed their first player, so there's a lot of hype behind Austin FC, man, especially with the stadium they're building, with the people who they hired in the front office, with their coach that they hired. So I think they're expecting big things, and that's because of stuff that LAFC and Atlanta United have been able to do as expansion teams. Even further back when Seattle was an expansion team, what they were able to do, know, it's being an expansion team is not an excuse in MLS realistically because of what's been able to happen last couple of times the MLS has expanded. Obviously, yeah, you're gonna have your FC Cincy's and your Minnesota Uniteds and whatnot, but but when you hit the ground running, you see what can happen. And I think Austin, that's the way Austin wants to go. They want to come in here guns blazing, just hit the ground running. I don't think they're here to mess around and build, take a year or two to build and this and that. Nah, I think they're here to hit the ground running and make the playoffs that first season and carry on from years out.
I'm curious if uh I'm curious if if Austin FC are trying to position themselves to be a big dog, or if they genuinely believe they're a big dog. And the reason I say this is because you've mentioned other expansion teams. We've had plenty of expansion teams that we can, go down the list of, and really very few of them have actually spent a lot of money out of the gate. I mean, we're talking Nashville that just joined,
Yeah.
not a lot of money spent. We're talking, I can go back to Vancouver, to, Montreal,
Cincinnati,
Cincinnati. There's a number of teams that haven't spent, a ton of money. They've spent some money because they're given an initial amount of money. But, I think if it's me, I feel like as much as Austin FC want to be a big dog and want to think that they're a big dog, I think that when it comes down to it, if they don't do it right, they're going to position themselves to be, to be a Cincinnati, to be just a higher price Cincinnati. You can't just spend, and we've talked about this with the Dynamo. You can't just spend money for the sake of spending money. Is 20 million for Vincent Janssen money well spent? It doesn't matter if he were to come in here and he scores 10 goals his first season. That's nothing compared to what you mentioned Josef Martinez. That's nothing compared to what Martinez did. That's nothing compared to what Miguel Almiron did. That's nothing compared to what Vela came in
Atan,
and did.
yeah.
And so is that money well spent? Is that player, is a Vincent Janssen at 20 million, is he going to net you what you're expecting out of a player that you would realistically, coming into MLS, spend 20 million for? And the answer to that is absolutely not.
I have a question for you, Sean.
Go ahead.
Let me reverse it back to you. Would you rather see obviously not using your bias as a Dynamo fan, right? But
Yeah, I'll separate
as a,
myself from a orange fandom for a minute for you.
okay, so but don't separate yourself too much. I still want to see like what your answer would be. Would you rather Austin FC come in as a big dog, or would you rather see them fall and fail, like let's say Cincinnati did?
Hold
The
on.
reason I asked that,
Oh, I thought we had a goal. No goal.
yeah, I
Referee
thought,
overrules it with a foul.
and the reason I asked that because obviously, like I said it earlier, if Austin FC comes in here like a big dog and they rule Texas soccer, I would hope that would push the Dynamo to do better in whatever aspect that they feel they need to do better, whether it's more spending on players, on better quality players, or better investment on an academy or whatever they think they need to do to improve to gain back the ground that they lost to Austin FC. That's why the reason I would want them to be a big dog coming in. Would you want them to be a big dog coming in, or would you want them to fall flat and fail like FC Cincinnati or Nashville maybe?
So there is two sides to that argument, and I will take off my Dynamo hat for a second. I'm not actually gonna. Well, my hair's not that.
Not literally.
Oh, that's pretty bad. Uh, on the one hand, I do want to see them come in and tear it up only because it increases the hype level of Texas teams and I think it puts a little bit of emphasis. And here's the thing that I think we haven't talked about yet, and I'm only going to say this because I think it needs to be said in this context. But we're talking about this from the Dynamo perspective, but how much would an Austin FC coming in spending that money also push Dallas as a team because they're not spending a lot of money either. And in fact, I feel like to some extent you may have kind of pointed out something that's been kind of a truth, which is that both MLS teams in Texas have been hesitant to spend a lot of money and have been more content to just leverage the kind of the local pool of talent and kind of be that mediocre middle of the pack team. Even though in some regards we know that the Hunt family that owns Frisco could certainly spend more money. So I just kind of frame it that way because we can talk about it from a Dynamo perspective, but it does impact them as well. With that being said, if Austin came in, I think, and spent that kind of money, and they absolutely ran the table, they challenged for MLS Cup their first year out. I think that does push the Dynamo. I think that we see Brenner bring in more investors to spend more money. I think we see them go with more of an LAFC approach where they start bringing in lower level investors, but ones that can help spread that salary cost and transfer fee cost across 100 investors instead of just 5. But on the flip side of that, I do think that there's also a possibility that Dynamo ownership could look at that and go, we can't even compete with that, so we're going to stick with what we do. And I don't think that's an invalid response at that point. I don't think that that's a response that's unfair. If you know as Gabriel Brenner, what your spending threshold is that you could afford to spend with this team. You know what you have available in terms of liquid assets and how much you can afford to spend. And if that's the case, and you've only got, $5 million or less to spend on transfers and you can't afford to spend more, you are reliant upon the smaller transfers panning out consistently and landing on your player more often than not because you can't afford to miss on a bigger player that you're spending whatever your maximum that you can spend is. With
See,
Austin, go ahead.
but this is the difference between FC Dallas and us. What FC Dallas can fall back on is the fact that they have a great academy, right? We're not to that level yet. We haven't seen the results yet. I mean, like I said, it's been great that we've seen kind of players been signed as of late, but they haven't proven anything yet. So we can't say that we're on level with FC Dallas, right? So that's the fallback for FC Dallas, that they have a structure that will keep. Yeah, they'll have 1 or 2 seasons where they're in the crapper, but then they'll have 2 or 3 seasons where they're up there competing because they have young talent that's hungry playing out there. That's why they had that 2-3 run where they were winning trophies. They didn't win the big trophy, but they were winning trophies. But as far as we're talking as far as Dynamo from a standpoint, our academy's not proven yet, right? We're not spending nowhere near the money that I think is necessary to compete with the top teams in the league, obviously. And then when we have an opportunity to I guess make moves as far as moving players along and then try to reinvest that money to bring other players in, we're not making those moves. We're kind of stuck. We're kind of like we're the fact that we let Alworth Lee's contract run down to the end of to his final years. It's mind boggling, you know. For as much as we want to keep him in his net, that's great. But I mean, but if a player wants to move on, you move him on, man. You know, this is business first and foremost. You know, you move them on, you gather that money back, and then you go and you reinvest into whatever you need to do. But we haven't had a huge transfer come into this team. FC Dallas, Bayern Munich bought one of their academy players for $3 million. The Richards kid that played in the first team, the last game of the Bundesliga game for them. They bought an academy player from them. Not a kid that played on the first team for FC Dallas. He was in the academy still. You know, what's our biggest transfer fee that's come into the club? Kubo Torres when they sold him to Pumas for at a $5 million, $6 million loss.
Jeff Cameron. Leaving.
I think Jeff left on a free.
No, he didn't.
I remember
we were paid a transfer fee for Jeff leaving. $1 3/4 million.
Okay, but still, but the Kubo transfer fee still beats it. But I mean, but it was at a loss, you know, for what we paid Chivas USA or MLS or whoever had the control over Kubo for him, or Chivas Guadalajara, you know. But no, it's one of those things where there's something going on where it's not going right as far as, you know, transfers and bringing players in and taking players out. So even that, if Austin FC comes in here with guns blazing, is it one of those things where you as a Dynamo fan, you can, and I see you got your Dynamo hat back on, could you withstand another 5 years of mediocrity soccer?
That's not fair. That's not a fair question. Okay. I'm going to separate two things. Number one, I'm going to separate myself as a fan, and then I'm going to separate myself as an educated fan, because I think there's a difference here. And it's not disrespect to the average fan, but I think as an average fan, I think there's no doubt. I want to see a competitive winning, you know, season year over year. I could even be willing to accept one non-competitive season in that 5 years, but I need to at least be on the cusp of playoffs for at least 2 of those seasons, and I need to be in the playoffs or better for the other 2. So, you know, basically slightly below 50% in terms of making playoffs, but at the same time, showing that there's progress over those 5 years is also important. With that being said, I'm going to take off that casual hat and I'm going to put on the educated fan hat, if you will. Am I willing to accept, you know, struggles for, you know, middle of the pack, mediocre team for 5 seasons straight? I think there's a better question, which is, are you willing to accept that if, and the reason this if is important is because it's a multi-layered if. Number one, are you willing to accept that if the Dynamos still have players coming through from the or have players that come up through the academy, 2, 3, 4 players over the next 5 years that come through the academy and end up starting for the first team at the end of that 5th season? You know, so that's a caveat in there. They end up having 4 or 5 academy players that end up playing by the end of that 5th season. Number 2, another if is if you end up saving that money and the Dynamo end up using whatever money that they would spend on a veteran player at those positions, and they spend it on a slightly improved version of a Mauro Manotas or an Alberth Elise, then is that acceptable as far as you know, a higher tier transfer goes? I think you have to say to some extent yes. Number 3, are they continuing with the same mentality of, are we, you know, we're focused